Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share my full review, the digitally digested segment, for the Sigma 65mm f2 DGDN contemporary lens for Sony E-mount full-frame cameras. Now, at $699 US, this is an affordable, I say, 65mm prime, but many of you may be scratching your head as to who is interested in a 65mm prime. And myself included, when I first received this from Sigma, I kind of wondered what I would actually use this for. Now, clearly, I think it's obvious that it's aimed at portrait photography, and I think if you employ, which I did, the APS-C crop mode, it becomes even more intriguing. Of course, that's at the loss of the inherent value of using it as a full-frame piece of glass. So I'm not suggesting that that should be its go-to, but it's nice to have that leverage. The other thing is that it is still fairly compact, very well made, like all of these new additions to Sigma's E-mount lineup of contemporary glass, following the same design cues as their cinema lenses. This is also available for the L-mount for those of you that are interested. And essentially, it is just a very sharp piece of glass. And, you know, when I first saw the 65mm, I said, you know, that's not something I see too much of. But, you know, traditionally 50mm, 55, even is a little bit odd, is where it sits for the average portrait lens that the general consumer, maybe not pro, is going to seek out. And at this price point, that is really who I feel Sigma is after, the average consumer. And the A7C is the ultimate average consumer full-frame camera. Small, light, capable, and incredibly convenient to take with you, whether you're traveling, whether you're, you know, an amateur or a pro. It's just a great camera, very versatile. So it's all about finding the right glass, and this is just another great addition to the lineup of E-mount options out there from reputable manufacturers. And a lot of people will say, well, there are other manufacturers other than Sigma, Ed, or Sony. Of course there are. Tamron is out there, but that's kind of where the list ends for me personally. I'm not saying that other manufacturers don't make competent glass. I've got some things coming in from Viltrox that are very affordable. I've covered Viltrox in the past. Those are budget-oriented options. But the whole idea here is that I think what Sigma has been doing with their contemporary line kind of bleeds in to their higher-end art line and the GM line of Sony glass. And that's what's really compelling about this, as well as the other compact primes that I've been covering. So, all metal build, made in Japan. We do have weather sealing, but again, I don't trust weather sealing, so don't get ahead of yourself. Don't think that you should get this wet. I keep saying it over and over again because, you know, I think every time I ever used to mention weather sealing, people would assume that that means they're protected, and you're not. It just means it's better than no weather sealing. The metal lens hood, I really like. It's aggressive, constructed well, and it does, at least from what I've used it, it does protect the glass. And that's something, you know, in the compact primes, Sony's been staying away from. I get it. They want to keep things small, but I'd still rather keep my glass protected as well as possible. Now, the magnetic lens cap is something new that Sigma's been including in these new primes. Of course, you get both. So you do have your traditional click lens cap, excuse me, you know, the pinch to put on, remove, but I love the convenience of these magnetic lens caps. So if you're like me and you see the A7C as being a photographic tool that's all about convenience, and having lenses to match has really been where we've been waiting for Sony and other manufacturers like Sigma and Tamron to step up to the plate, now you've got your option. And, you know, I've joked a little bit that I feel like this is the portrait lens in some ways of social distancing in some form, because it does allow you, unlike a 50mm, where you do have to be a good number of feet away. Obviously, with the 65, it's even more distance between you and your subject. But all jokes aside, it's incredibly sharp. If you're shooting stills primarily, I think you're going to be happy with the portraits you get out of this, especially out of, again, such a compact form factor. I mean, the A7C is the king, in my opinion, of rangefinder style bodies, full frame, beautiful 4K video, fantastic stills, you know, fully articulating display, it doesn't leave a lot to be desired, although I know we're going to get a lot more because all of this glass coming from both Sony, Sigma, and other manufacturers tells you that everybody knows that this is where things are headed, which is where things started for Sony. Keeping it small, less is more, delivering performance in a package you wouldn't expect it. And with this, again, that fits in the palm of my hand, and I don't have very large hands, it is really impressive what this lens and body pairing is capable of. And that's kind of been the theme on everything Sigma sent my way here for review. I didn't purchase this. This is a review unit. It is going back to the manufacturer, just like the 24, the 35, and the 45 prime. And I really like it. You know, this was kind of a head scratcher, similarly to the Sony 45, where I was kind of like, what, or excuse me, the Sony 40 I meant, that I wasn't really sure what I would use this for, you know, but realistically speaking, it is a portrait lens, and then of course it bleeds into, with the APS-C crop mode, into becoming a telephoto lens. And if you attach it to a higher res E-mount full frame camera like the A7R II or A7R4 or the A7R3, I just wasn't able to test it with it because I no longer have an A7R3. I sold that a while back. You now have a prime telephoto option, which is really cool considering how sharp this is. Now, when it comes to focus breathing, yes, it's there. It's there on every piece of glass on Earth pretty much. And, you know, the A7C has a very strong hybrid autofocus system. Paired with the autofocus capability of this lens, you're in good shape. The Aperture Ring is as clicky as it could ever be. Really solid. I love the feel. It's a very satisfying Aperture Ring, more so I would say than the Sony primes, but of course it does not have the ability to turn that click off. Sigma, if you could add that, you have really some of, if not the best glass on the market, I think, for E-mount users outside of Sony's own native lenses, which is a pretty big endorsement coming from me. And remember, I'm not paid to make these endorsements. You know, I'm not saying one day, but right now, that's not the case. This is just a review unit. I like the distance between the focus ring and the aperture ring. That's something that as these compact primes get more and more compact, especially the Sony ones, they're so tight that I feel like, you know, if you do have larger hands, I'm not saying it's going to be a problem or you're going to have issues, but it's just something to be aware of. The only switch, physical switch on this lens is the autofocus switch. Beyond that, you're just looking again at a made in Japan, robust build quality that you really aren't going to find from anyone else. And that's what Sigma's all about. Really sharp glass, incredible build quality, and pricing that you wouldn't necessarily expect. And that is the thing about this lens in particular. Now, I'm not saying I wasn't impressed with the sharpness of the 35 or the 24 or the 45, but this one in particular, as I stated at the top of this video, kind of makes me feel like it gives the higher end glass, again, the Art series from Sigma and the GM series from Sony, a run for its money. So while I was scratching my head at the 65mm point, you know, after seeing the images, the stills, I was kind of sold on this. Now, am I running out and buying one? Not quite yet, because where I am right now, I'm happy with the glass I have, and we are still in a pandemic, and I don't shoot for a living. As much as I love photography and I've been covering cameras and glass for a really long time, it isn't how I make my money. I'm not an event photographer. I don't do weddings. I don't have a portrait studio, but I could see this being perfect for weddings and general portrait photography. Again, especially in the pandemic, the extra distance isn't bad, but it does bleed into telephoto, which is really cool, especially considering its size and weight. So if you're looking for a portrait lens that is going to be a great marriage with the A7C, it's going to be tough to look past the 65mm f2 lens. And I say it over and over again, But I'm going to reiterate, love the magnetic lens cap, Sigma. Thank you. This is something that manufacturers should have done a long time ago, but not all manufacturers are making everything out of metal, right? So they don't have the ability necessarily to employ magnetic lens caps. But remember, these are not as secure as the traditional pinch caps. So just be aware. The other thing you need to know is, and I've stated this over and over again in my coverage of all of these new compact primes, that when you put on these lens hoods, which, by the way, I think are the best in the business right now for the compact primes, I've said it, I'll say it again, Sony's done a really nice job with their lineup, but their lens hoods leave quite a bit to be desired because they are really following the design cue, and I totally understand it, of keeping it as compact as possible. Sigma went a different route, which is, if we're going to give them a lens hood, let's give them a real lens hood. And if we're going to listen to customer feedback, let's make it an all-metal one. Because I have covered Sigma lenses in the past that are great, but then I feel like I'm going to need to go to a third-party lens hood. Well, Sigma addressed that. So they're doing quite a bit to differentiate themselves, even though they've been in the business pretty much forever and have a reputation that is very good. I mean, they're an outstanding glass and camera body manufacturer. I mean, even though their business is primarily in lenses, in glass, God knows I am waiting for that FPL patiently, and I'm excited to see what that little full-frame cinema monster can do with its improvements and advancements. But again, I don't think anyone who's interested in a portrait prime compact piece of glass that's relatively fast at f2, yes, it could be faster, but think about the size of this lens. You get any faster, and I don't know how much larger and how much more off balance it will make a camera like the A7C. And unlike the other primes that I've tested from Sigma, the new compact ones, which are all really sharp, this one seems to be the sharpest, and that has made me more comfortable. It's also its size, as I stated earlier, to use this on the larger E-mount bodies like my A7R2 and 4. So it's competent, it resolves the resolution, and again, tack sharp, and oddly enough, a telephoto lens at the end of the day, which is odd considering its size, considering its price, considering that it's a prime piece of glass. I could see why this would be desirable, whereas when I unboxed it, and when it was offered for review, I was kind of baffled by Sigma's choice to make a 65mm f2, but after using it, I can tell you this is a lens that I think is going to garner interest with a lot more people than I initially presumed. And, presumptions are exactly that, assumptions that aren't founded in actual experience. And now that I have it, I can tell you this is yet another really great offering for E-mount users. And I just love that we've got them. I say it over and over again, but the days of Sony making more bodies than lenses is so long gone that we have great options from manufacturers like Sigma. And remember, this is made in Japan, and I don't feel like we're paying a premium for that. So that's another nice advantage for those of you who do prefer your camera gear made in Japan or any electronics gear. I stated over and over that manufacturers, no matter where they have their products made, granted, nothing's really made here in the US, we know that, we just consume, right? But Japan, China, South Korea, wherever it's made, Vietnam, they are held to the manufacturer's standards in that factory. So don't think that because something is made in one country, it makes it better. I feel like that's mental midget. Oh, sorry if I offended anyone with that one, PC police. But it's not, to me, the days of being made in Japan being synonymous with, the highest level of craftsmanship. It's not that it's no more. It's that companies hold standards high no matter where a product is made. But if it appeals to you that it's made in Japan, well, then Sigma's got your solution right here, don't they? And again, not at a premium. I mentioned Vio laptops because I cover them. I love them, but God knows you are paying an incredible premium for that to be handcrafted in Japan. Here, handcrafted in Japan, but the premium isn't going to make you turn over your checking account. So, really like this lens. Surprised that I do. because I kind of wasn't sure what I'd be doing with it, because it does sit somewhere between what is typical for portraiture and, of course, telephoto. But I find myself, as I've stated, like with the A7R4, throwing this into crop mode, and then all of a sudden I've got a telephoto prime, which is really cool and yields some really sharp results that otherwise would not be achievable, especially with such a compact and, dare I say, affordable piece of glass. And again, love the magnetic lens caps. Sigma, keep on doing what you're doing. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. Hit that like button, and as usual, please feel free to subscribe, and please stay safe. Later.